Hey everyone. So first, I know I promised a Pokemon video next, but I guess that isn't happening. I honestly haven't felt like making Pokemon content as of recent, but I can try to pump something out. I have a few ideas. Second, I know I ended the Exes story time with the finale about sugar, but I decided to do a quick epilogue of sorts to put a nice little wrapping bow on the series. Third, before you get the idea, no, Kael'thas and I did not break up and have no plans to. This is just a fun idea that I had. So, obviously, this video will be about Kael'thas, aka Alex, my current partner. You will hear some returning names from the past, as well as some new ones. This will follow the same pattern as the main Exes Storytime videos, aside from the breakup section, how we met, events leading up to the relationship, how we got together, key moments in the relationship itself, and if we ever did break up, what would happen after that. Well, with all that squared away, let's get started. I had met Kael'thas one day during work at my first job. Yes, the same job where I met Yandere Dev. At the time, I had been dating Pepe and had a crush on Dev. In October or November that year, I can't quite remember, Kael'thas came into my checkout lane. We were talking about school and stuff, and he mentioned having a teacher that told him he'd never amount to anything, and another one who would pin kids up against walls if they misbehaved. After our interaction was over, I didn't think much else of him. Most customers, except those who I knew were regulars, were a one and done. I hadn't seen him before in my month or two of working there, so I assumed he was a passerby. A little while goes by, and we cross paths again. We strike up another conversation, and then he leaves again. Once again, I didn't think anything of it. However, as time went on, we actually started to develop a friendship. He'd always pick my line to go down if I was there, and sometimes he'd stay for an hour just chatting with me if it was late and the store was dead. Eventually, we exchanged numbers, but I typed it in wrong, so when I tried to text him the first time, it never went through. Next time I saw him, I asked him about it, and I showed him the number, which was indeed typed in wrong. After that, we also exchanged Discord information. At some point, he also mentioned to me about being bi-curious, so that piqued my interest a bit. But having been 17 at the time and him being 21, obviously a relationship couldn't go anywhere, and once again, I was also interested in Dev, not him. As mentioned in Dev's video, him and two of his friends, who we'll call Jeveljo and Nargacuga, convinced me to take back my very expensive Heart Gold game, since after my confession, Dev didn't even give me the courtesy of a rejection. All of us came to the conclusion that he didn't deserve it if he wasn't even going to properly answer my message and just leave me on scene. From those times to shortly after Dev and I got together, we didn't hang out outside of work. We had calls on Discord, sure, but that's about as far as our interactions went until he started driving me to work occasionally, when my parents would throw a fit about it. We were friends, but I didn't think much of our friendship at first. He did mention one day when I was having doubts about Dev that had I been 18, he would have asked me out though. After Dev left for college, Kael'thas and I started hanging out more and more outside of work as he wanted to help me get away from my parents whenever possible, as they weren't, and one of them still isn't, the best of people. He slowly but surely started to become my best friend, coming to work to visit me, taking me to places and letting me film silly videos with my plushies in public without judgment, etc. Once Dev and I broke up, I was devastated. Kael'thas was one of the few people who were there for me and once again brought up the possibility of us dating in the future. I kind of just brushed it off and moved on, however, that obviously wouldn't be the end of that, as occasionally the topic would come up in conversation and what have it. We kept growing closer as friends, and then it all came to a climax one day. One day, Kael'thas invited me over to his place. We were just casually hanging out when I kind of just decided to be a bit of a jerk and kept taking his one foam sword and playing around with it, which would result in him wresting it away from me. This happened a few times, and then we ended up hugging, and I kind of just said if I'd date him, would he stop? From there, we started dating. I will admit, before we got together, there were no feelings whatsoever. This was an impulsive decision we both made in that moment, and while he had feelings, I did not at first, though it didn't take long for them to kick in. The relationship was really rocky to start, and we broke up a total of 3 times within the first year of the relationship. First time was because I tried to move out of my parents' house and ended up going back, and he couldn't take the mental toll it was having on him, seeing me not being able to just stand up for myself. Second time was when I actually did move out, and he kicked me out after a month or so because at that point we just weren't getting along. And the third time was when, as I mentioned in Dev's video, he made up a ruse that he was quote unquote aromantic and got a mutual friend involved to make it seem more believable. We kept a friends with benefits thing going, or rather, quote unquote, acted like we were dating, both in public and in private, but the title as partners didn't apply to us, I guess. Our little quote unquote arrangement had to stop once I started dating Dev for the second time. Before Dev and I got back together, I did bring up the prospect of it to Kael'thas, and he said he was hurt by me saying that. I came back with why. We aren't even dating anymore. All he said at first was that he didn't know, but after some prodding later, he said he was afraid of me replacing him. That should have been the dead giveaway that he wasn't aromantic as he claimed, but I dropped it and just continued to go after Dev once more. However, that didn't stop Kael'thas. He would constantly make advances on me and whatnot, and was relentless while I was with Dev. I admit he eventually started to break me down. I still really cared about him, but I also cared about Dev. At some point, I realized I wanted both of them, but I knew I could only have one since Kael'thas is monogamous, and as stated in my Pride Month video, I have no idea what Dev's stance is. A few months later, I'd break up with Dev. It took another month or two for Kael'thas and I to get back together, all the while Dev thought we were still dating, which honestly was my fault. I was still being very affectionate towards him and didn't have the heart at the time to tell him firmly to back off. Eventually I did, though, as I got fed up with it, and that took care of Dev for the most part. Then the stuff that went down with Flippy happened around this time last year. We dated for a few weeks, then broke up because of his instability, though if he had been more stable, I would have most likely left Kael'thas for Flippy, mainly because of him not caring about me being polyamorous. Kael'thas was not happy about it, but didn't stop me. Later, he told me it was doomed to fail, but he was still hurt that it all happened regardless. Since then, I haven't tried to seek out another partner since he's monogamous, but I would definitely seek out a polyamorous partner if Kael'thas and I ever did go our separate ways. Speaking of Flippy, quick interval. Flippy actually reached out during Labor Day weekend, and we became friends again. But that was short lived as he pulled the same song and dance like he did when we broke up. So this time, I Uno reversed it on him and just told him to delete my number and never hit me up again. I just hope him and his girlfriend he was with didn't break up because of his admittedly selfish antics. Also, a short update on Yandere Dev. We're friends again and actively working to repair that connection instead of keeping it severed. I regret how I handled that situation, and I'll probably also take down the Pokemon video that slanders him and remake it or at least edit in a different Pokemon. Including Zangoose in that video was a very low blow, and Lopunny 100% deserved a spot on that list over Zangoose. I'll add this in here too, as this video was supposed to go up a month or two ago, but I never got around to it. While I was not exactly seeking out another partner, recently I developed not so secret feelings almost completely randomly for a coworker who we'll call Mr. Peanut Butter, and those feelings may or may not be mutualish. I've heard different things. However, since we're both in monogamous relationships, nothing came of it and nothing probably ever will. I have made Kael'thas aware of this crush, though, as I didn't want to keep it in the dark. If this situation crescendos any further, which I highly doubt, but anything can happen, I guess expect a video on it. Anyways, back to the main story. Kael'thas and I's relationship has never been a smooth sailing one. I am a very temperamental and paranoid person, so that doesn't help my case at all. After what Sugar, Rubik, Pepe, and partially Dev did to me, I'm very insecure and it's hard for me to trust my partner. Yet, we still try to keep this relationship together. Recently, we promised each other that we would try to smooth out the cracks, but it's been hard. We're trying, though, and don't have any plans to break up at the moment. Despite what my past holds and the aforementioned Mr. Peanut Butter situation, I care about Kael'thas a lot and love him more than anyone else, so I'm really trying to put aside the insecurities those other three assholes caused and believe Kael'thas would not hurt me like that. I can either see our relationship lasting a lifetime if we can learn to work out the flaws, or crashing and burning by next year if we continue to go at each other's throats or make more cracks. If we ever did break up, however, I actually don't know where we'd go from there. I feel like if I ended it, we could potentially stay friends, but our contact would have to be very minimal. The biggest mistake I made when I dated Dev the second time was not cutting off Kel'Thas, almost if not entirely. He was able to break me down, and with Dev being a very absent partner, it worked. So if I got into another relationship or he got into another one himself, I know it would cause trouble, and I feel like we'd have to keep our relationship statuses a secret, or if we ever hung out, we'd need to bring our hypothetical other partners with us. If he was the one to end it, I don't think I could stay his friend just because all those feelings of distrust and doubt would end up clouding my judgment in that very moment. It would be extremely hard for me to consider him anything more than an ex if he were to end it, and there's a chance if I ended it, the same thing could happen. If we ever ran into each other after we broke up, which would be nigh impossible as we both work in factories and don't live very close to one another, I feel like it would depend on how the breakup went and how long we continued to stay together up to that point, if I would engage or not. At this moment, we've been together for a little over 4 years on and off. I feel like if we stayed together another couple years, then fell off, I couldn't have a normal interaction with him in public. If we say broke up within 3 or 4 months of me making this video, however, a normal interaction could be possible. So, that's it. That's the epilogue of the Exes Storytime series. I tried to make this script as short and sweet as possible, and I was supposed to make another video before the end of the year, but ever since I got back into my old job at the box factory, I haven't had a lot of free time to make videos. I tend to focus my free time on specific things like video games or drawing, so making videos usually gets pushed aside. Plus, my Thanksgiving break just passed, and while I aimed to get this out then, I ended up getting sick and lost my voice, so it's going out now. Probably won't be making another video before the end of the year. I'll try to be more active and finally push out some more Pokemon content, but I cannot promise anything. There's a few other story times I would love to do, but I know over half of you subscribed for Pokemon, so I guess just be patient. I don't know. Until next time, go pet a dragon. See ya!